On June the 27th, 2019, a bill known as the Decreto Crescita, or the Growth Decree in English, passed through Italy's Senate. The purpose of the legislation is to boost the stuttering Italian economy, but it could also have a major impact on football and the ability of Serie A clubs to attract the world's best players and coaches because of a new tax break. The legislation is being compared to the Beckham Law, a tax decree that was signed into Spanish law in 2005 and that provided tax breaks for rich foreign workers such as footballers. Given that David Beckham was one of the first players to benefit from the law during his time at Real Madrid, his name became forever associated with the measure. From 2005 until an amendment in 2010, this tax break helped La Liga clubs to afford some of the most lucrative contracts in football. Now, Serie A clubs could similarly benefit thanks to Article 5 of the Decreto Crescita. The aim of this section of the bill is the rientro dei cervelli, meaning the return of the brains, as the Italian government is trying to stop the brain drain that has hurt the country's economy by bringing skilled workers back to Italy. In order to do this, a 5-year tax discount is being offered to anyone who's been a resident outside of Italy for the previous 2 years and who moves to Italy for a minimum of 2 years to work. It doesn't matter whether this person is Italian or non-Italian, it applies to all. It would apply, therefore, to someone like new Roma coach Paulo Fonseca, who's been a resident in Ukraine for the past 2 years. It would not, though, apply to someone like new Juventus coach Maurizio Sarri, who only spent 1 year outside of Italy and England as coach of Chelsea. The new law comes into force at the beginning of 2020, which means that it isn't in effect for the first half of the 2019-20 season. From 2020 onwards, though, players and coaches can benefit from the tax break as long as they commit to staying for 2 years minimum. Anyone who benefits from the tax discount but then leaves Italy before staying for the 2 years would have to pay back the deducted amount. For the general population, those who are eligible for the tax break do not have to pay any income tax on the first 70% of their income or on the first 90% of their income for those moving to regions in the south. However, it's slightly different when it comes to footballers. The Italian government amended the first draft of the law to limit the value for footballers to 50% and to remove the southern region's extra benefit. It doesn't matter if a player moves to a northern club like Juventus or to a southern club like Napoli, the percentage of tax-free income is 50%. This, though, is still a significant discount for the clubs. Imagine Roma want to offer a player an after-tax salary of 10 million euros. Previously, the club would have had to pay 17.5 million euros because the entire sum would have been taxed at the highest Italian income tax rate of 43%, leaving 10 million euros after 7.5 was paid to the taxman. Under the new situation, it would only cost Roma 12.7 million euros because only 50% of this would be taxed, working out at a payment of 2.7 million to the taxman. And this is a saving of 4.8 million euros. Multiply that across several years and several players, and the benefit is evident. A further 0.5% of tax will also have to be paid to a central fund by footballers benefiting from this tax break, with this money going to help youth development. Plus, there are some minor taxes such as regional taxes that may have to be paid. Overall, though, this is a great advantage for Italian football, as Serie A clubs can either pay the same salaries at a lower cost, or they can now afford salaries and attract players or coaches who would have otherwise been unattainable. So, just how significant can this Beckham Law be for Italy? The rule can significantly help the growth of our football, both in terms of value and competitiveness, sports lawyer Carlo Rambolla told Calcio e Fianza. This could potentially start a good cycle to bring championship-caliber players to Serie A, stated an editorial in La Gazzetta dello Sport. There could, however, be some negative side effects of Italy's Beckham Law. The fact that it only applies to players who've been residents outside of Italy for the previous 2 years means that Serie A clubs might target an increasing number of foreign players. The discount applies to Italians moving home as well, but logically there are obviously far fewer Italians abroad than foreign players, and this could damage the prospects of young Italians coming through. There is also concern that this decree might actually lead to a reduction in tax revenues. The Italian government has insisted that this will not be the case, but there are others who believe that the government is handing out tax reductions to many people who would have come to Italy anyway. Finally, there is some anger at the fact that rich players, coaches and football clubs are the ones who stand to benefit. Even though the Italian government reduced the percentage discount for football professionals, the fact they didn't completely remove this tax break for footballers suggests that they are comfortable with the football industry benefiting from it. So it remains to be seen if Serie A really will be able to propel itself into a new golden era, thanks to this Beckham Law. The very best in the world used to call Italy home, from Van Basten to Ronaldo to Shevchenko to Kaká. Perhaps Serie A will have the cream of the crop once again.